How many people really know what causes a heart attack? Most people think they'll recognize the warning signs, but I've got news for you. They're wrong. 50% of people have no warning pain at all, and women often feel less pain and more nausea than men. And most importantly, half the people having heart attacks die from the injury. Now let's take a look at exactly what happens when you have a heart attack. On this illustration, you see the general schema of the heart. And these are the red arteries that give blood that nourishes the muscle. If we pretend we're going into this artery, as we dive in, we see the surface vessels. And here are the endothelial cells, these little white structures. This is a fatty plaque. Many of you already have these because we find them in even teenagers. As this fatty plaque begins to grow from bad diet and other bad habits, it becomes irritable. And as it becomes irritable and becomes larger, the red cells bounce off it and they rupture it. After it's ruptured, it's very thrombogenic. So platelets and fibrin, which are these little cement blocks, line up with the platelets and they make a clot. And clots are dangerous. Clots are what kill people, not necessarily the plaque. Once the clot's there, it begins to suck in red blood cells. Now remember, this big lumen gets smaller and smaller, and you're about to witness what kills more Americans than anybody else. Kaboom! Once it closes off, the blood can't go anywhere. And the muscle that was perfused, that was fed by this blood vessel, is no longer there. Most of you know that exercising, eating a healthy diet, and quitting smoking can decrease your risk of heart disease. But did you know that years of bad habits can actually be reversed? I recently sat down with cardiologist and nutrition expert Dr. Dean Ornish, who talked about the importance of a low-fat, plant-based diet in reversing heart disease. Dean, thank you.
Great to see you, Mehmet.
It's great to see you. Thank you very much for making time.
Oh, my pleasure.
You've always impressed me because you've very nicely ridden the academic machinery required to prove some of the things you've done. At the same time, you've been able to convey a lot of your thoughts to the average American. What is the most important thing about your diet? You've got lots of things in there, but what really is the key element to it?
The diet is really based on not giving you things that promote disease, like cholesterol, saturated fat, oxidants, and so on. But it's not only what you exclude, but also what you include in your diet that's important. And there's increasing research showing that there are at least 1,000 substances that help to prevent against cancer and heart disease and even to slow the aging process. Things like phytochemicals, bioflavonoids, carotenoids, retinols, isoflavones, genistein, lycopene. There's a whole alphabet soup of these. And where do you find them? With few exceptions, you find them in fruits, vegetables, grains, and beans. So the diet gives you a double benefit. You reduce your intake of substances that promote disease, and you get lots of others that are actually protective.
I talk to people about diet all the time, and the big beef, the big complaint about your diet is that America can't do it. Can America do your diet? Can America cut down the amount of fat intake as much as you require?
Right. You know, the old joke is, am I going to live longer, or is it just going to seem longer if I eat this way? And fortunately, that's not the case. And let me first clarify. I would love to be able to tell people that eating bacon and sausage and high-fat foods can reverse heart disease, but they don't. And so my role is simply to tell people what's true. And what we try to explain is that, first of all, there are different versions of the diet. If you're trying to prevent disease, you don't have to be so strict. It's about the ounce of prevention instead of the pound of cure. You can customize a diet that's really based on your own needs and preferences if you don't have heart disease. But if you do have heart disease and you're trying to reverse it, and it's probably true for some forms of cancer as well, it takes big changes. But when you make big changes in diet and lifestyle, in some ways it's actually easier than making small ones, even though that sounds a little nutty. Because when you make big changes, most people find they feel so much better so quickly. It reframes the reason for making these changes from risk factor reduction and prevention, which is boring for most people, to feeling better. And so I don't tell people what to do, because I've learned even more than being healthy, people want to feel free and in control. But I do tell people the facts so they can then decide what they want to do. And the facts are that moderate changes are not enough to reverse heart disease, but big changes often are.